The storm had followed him for miles. Cold rain poured from the sky like buckets. The wind howled through the trees and sent dark clouds racing across the sky. Royce Tanner, a tired rancher in his early 40s, pulled his horse to a stop on the muddy trail. His brown hat was soaked. His coat hung heavy with water. His boots were covered in dirt. His body ached from 3 days of hard riding. All he wanted was a dry bed, a hot meal, and a quiet place to sleep. Up ahead, he saw a dim light glowing through the trees. It was a house, a large wooden house, 2 stories tall with smoke coming out of the chimney. A crooked sign above the porch read in faded paint, Rose Hill Rest. Royce's eyes narrowed. He didn't remember seeing this place on the map. Still, it was better than spending another night under the open sky. He clicked his tongue, and his tired horse walked toward the house. Rain hit the roof hard. Thunder cracked above. His horse neighed nervously. Royce slid off the saddle, landing in mud. He tied the reins to the post and took the steps 2 at a time. Before he could knock, the front door creaked open. A woman stood in the doorway. She looked about 45 with dark hair tied up in a bun. She wore a simple, long blue dress, neat but old. Her smile was wide, but something in her eyes made Royce pause. It was not fear, it was excitement, like she had been waiting for him. "Well now," she said with a sweet voice, "you're a sight for sore eyes. Come on in, cowboy. Don't stay out in this storm." Royce hesitated, just for a second, but the wind pushed him forward, and the warm light inside was too tempting. He stepped through the doorway. The inside smelled like soup and wood smoke. A small fire burned in the fireplace. The room was simple: wooden floor, 2 chairs, a round table, and a staircase that went up to the 2nd floor. Another woman sat near the fire. She was younger, maybe 20, with long blonde hair. She was sewing, but when she looked up and saw him, she froze. Her blue eyes went wide. Her needle slipped from her hand. "This here's my niece, June," the older woman said quickly. "She helps me run this place. I'm Miss Clara. You just call me Clara, everyone does. You must be soaked. Sit by the fire. I'll get you something warm." Royce took off his hat and coat. Water dripped onto the floor. "Much obliged, ma'am," he said. "Name's Royce Tanner. Been riding north. Got work waiting for me in Copper Ridge. This storm caught me off guard." Clara smiled wider. "Well, it's your lucky night. We don't get many travelers this way, not in weather like this. But we always have a room ready. Ain't that right, June?" June nodded slowly, but her hands were shaking. Royce sat near the fire. The heat felt good. His bones were cold and his legs were sore. He looked around the room. Everything looked clean, but too clean. The chairs had no dust. The floor looked freshly swept. The pictures on the wall hung straight. Something felt off. But maybe he was just tired. "You hungry?" Clara asked. "Starving." She disappeared into the kitchen. Royce looked at June. She was pretending to sew, but her hands kept slipping. She wasn't looking at her thread, she was watching him. "Nice place you got here," he said. She nodded again. "It's quiet. Most days." He was about to ask more, but Clara came back holding a steaming bowl of stew. "Here you go," she said. "Made it just this morning. Beef and carrots, nothing fancy, but it'll fill your belly." Royce took the bowl. The stew smelled strong, too salty maybe, but he didn't care. He hadn't eaten since dawn. He took a bite, then another. "You must be worn out," Clara said, sitting across from him. "You've got that look, like someone who's been chasing the road for too long." Royce smiled. "That's about right. You can sleep upstairs?" Clara said, nodding toward the stairs. "Second door on the right. Clean sheets. Quiet room. You'll sleep like a rock." June dropped her sewing again. Clara gave her a sharp look. "Careful now, June. Don't prick your finger again." Royce looked between them. June seemed nervous, too nervous. Her hands fumbled and her face was pale. Clara, on the other hand, was calm. Too calm, like she was in control. Thunder crashed again. The lights flickered. Royce finished his stew. The warmth was spreading in his chest, but also a strange heaviness in his arms. He blinked a few times. His eyes felt heavy. Clara stood and began clearing the table. "You go on up, Mr. Tanner. I'll tend to the dishes. You've earned your rest." Royce stood slowly. His legs felt weaker than they should. "Storm got you worn down," Clara said. "Sleep'll fix that." Royce gave a polite nod, then walked toward the stairs. June still hadn't looked up. Her lips were moving like she wanted to say something, but didn't. At the foot of the stairs, Royce paused. He looked back. Clara was watching him, still smiling, but her eyes weren't kind. They were sharp, watching too closely. Royce climbed the stairs. Each step creaked. He felt the weight of the house behind him, the silence, the storm outside, and something else. Something in the air. Something that told him this place wasn't what it seemed. Royce Tanner reached the top of the stairs, his boots making soft thuds on the wooden floor. A single lantern hung on the wall, its weak yellow light shaking with the wind. Shadows danced along the walls like ghosts. He looked down the hallway. 4 doors. One slightly open. Second door on the right. That's what Clara had said. He moved toward it, slow and careful. The stew in his belly made him feel heavy and dizzy. His head buzzed like bees were inside it. Something wasn't right. Maybe it was just the long ride, or maybe it was the stew. He pushed the door open. The room was clean, too clean. The bed was made perfectly. The white sheets were tight. A glass of water sat on a small table beside the bed. The window was closed, the curtains drawn. He stepped inside and shut the door. Rain still tapped the roof. Thunder rolled, far in the distance. Royce took off his boots and laid down. The bed was soft, his muscles relaxed. He should have been falling asleep, but he couldn't. His eyes stayed open, staring at the wooden ceiling. The strange feeling in his stomach grew worse. He felt watched, and not just from outside the room. He sat up. Something whispered in the back of his mind. Don't sleep. Not yet. He stood and moved to the window, pulled the curtain aside. What he saw made his heart beat faster. Out in the yard by the trees stood June. She was in the rain. No coat, no umbrella, just standing there staring at the house, staring at his window. Royce opened the window. "June?" he called softly. She didn't move. He leaned out. "Are you okay?" She raised her hand and pointed, not at him but to the back of the house. Then she turned and ran into the woods. Royce pulled on his boots fast, grabbed his coat. He opened the door, ready to go after her. But Clara was already there, standing in the hallway. Her smile was gone. "She doesn't do well with strangers," she said calmly. "She gets confused." Royce didn't believe her. "She's out in the storm," he said. "I saw her." She pointed to the woods. "Something's wrong." Clara took a step forward. "You're tired, Mr. Tanner. You've had a long ride, and your mind's playing tricks. Lie back down. You'll feel better in the morning." He shook his head. "No, I think I'll go check." He moved past her. Clara's hand grabbed his arm, stronger than he expected. "Don't," she said, her voice low and hard. Royce pulled away. "Don't touch me." Clara's eyes narrowed, then slowly she backed away. "Suit yourself," she said, "but don't say I didn't warn you." Royce hurried down the stairs. The fire was almost out. The house felt colder than before. He stepped out into the night. The rain had slowed, but the ground was soft and wet. He followed the path toward the back of the house. Then he saw it. A second building, half hidden behind trees and brush, small and square with no windows. A locked wooden door. The lock was old, rusted, but Royce had a knife in his coat. He took it out, forced the lock until it broke. The door creaked open. The smell hit him like a punch. Mold, old wood, something else. Inside, there were cages, and inside those cages, there were things, people, some alive, barely breathing, some not. He stumbled back. Then he saw June, inside the last cage. Her face pale, her hands reaching through the bars. "Help me," she whispered. Royce rushed forward, broke the lock with shaking hands. She fell into his arms. "They never let anyone leave," she said, her voice weak. "You're not the first. She feeds them poison, in the stew. Some die, some she keeps." Royce helped her stand. "We need to leave. Now." Together they ran. Branches scratched their arms. Mud splashed their boots. The trees closed in behind them. From the house came a scream. Clara's voice, loud and angry. "She knows," June said. "I don't care," Royce answered. "We're getting out." They reached the horse. Royce helped June up first, then climbed behind her. He kicked the horse hard. It galloped down the trail. Behind them, the house grew smaller, but something followed. Clara. She was fast, too fast for a woman her age. Her dress floated like a ghost's. Her eyes glowed in the dark. Her face had changed, longer, sharper, like something not quite human. Royce pushed the horse harder. Trees blurred around them. Clara screamed again, louder this time, like an animal. The wind howled with her. The trees bent as if bowing to her. "Hey, then silence!" Royce looked back. She was gone. The trail was empty. The house. Gone. No lights. No building. Just forest. Royce slowed the horse. June looked back too. "That's what happens," she said quietly. "Once you escape, it disappears. She only finds the lost ones. Travelers. The ones no one will come looking for." Royce nodded slowly. His heart still beat fast, his body still shook. He looked at June. "You tried to warn me." She nodded. "But not all listen." He stared at the dark forest behind them, and then at the road ahead. "You're safe now," he said. But deep down he wasn't sure. Royce Tanner had faced many strange things in his life. Bandits, broken wheels, wild storms, even a preacher who spoke to birds. But nothing compared to the old woman in the forest who cooked poisoned stew and kept people in cages. And yet, as his horse trotted down the dark trail and June leaned weakly against him, one silly thought kept spinning in his head. "This is the worst bed and breakfast I've ever stayed in." They had just barely escaped. Rain still dripped from the trees, but the forest was quiet now. Too quiet. Royce looked over his shoulder again. No Clara, no floating dress, no glowing eyes. "Either she's gone," he muttered, "or she's flying, now." June didn't laugh. She was still pale and weak. Her eyes were wide. She looked like someone who had stared into the mouth of death, and death had smiled back. Royce didn't blame her, but his mind worked differently. Some people cried when scared. Some froze. Royce? He told jokes, quiet ones, dry, ones sometimes only to himself. "Maybe she just wanted a good Yelp review," he said under his breath. 5 stars. Nice stew, very relaxing. Just ignore the screams from the shed. Still no smile from June. She had been through too much. They rode in silence for a while. The trees began to thin. Royce could see the stars again. The clouds had moved on, and the road was more open now. "Where are we going?" June asked finally. Royce shrugged. "Anywhere without cages, stew, or creepy old women." "I don't remember where I lived," she said softly. "She took that from me. Took everything." Royce nodded. "We'll figure it out, one step at a time. First, we get to a town, a real one, with real people." "And real beds?" June asked. He smirked. "Beds, yes. Chains under them?" "Hopefully not." That made her smile. Just a little. but it was something. After a few more miles, they reached a sign by the road. It was crooked, covered in moss, and barely readable. "Welcome to Sparrow Bend," Royce read aloud. "Population, don't count on it." Well, that's comforting. The town was small, just a few wooden buildings, one saloon, a general store, and a tiny post office. But there were lights in the windows and, more importantly, people. Normal-looking people. Royce helped June down from the horse. They walked into the saloon. The bartender, a big man with a bald head and a kind face, looked up. "Y'all look like you've been chased by ghosts," he said. Royce gave a tired smile. "Close enough. Got a room upstairs?" The bartender nodded. "One.
Left.
First door on the right. I'll send up some soup." "No stew," Royce said quickly. The bartender laughed. "All right, no stew." The room was small but warm. Royce helped June into bed, then sat in the chair by the window. For the first time in hours, he let his guard down, but his mind still buzzed. Who was Clara, really? Why did the house disappear? And why did he have the strange feeling that this wasn't over? He stared at the wall. June had fallen asleep. He leaned back and closed his eyes. Then, a knock. Slow, steady. 3 knocks. He stood and opened the door. No, one there, just a folded note on the floor. He picked it up. No name, no address. Just a message. "She's not finished with you." Royce frowned. Well, that's not very polite. He looked down the hallway. Nothing, just creaky floorboards and an old lamp swinging slightly. He walked back inside. June was still asleep. He sat back down, holding the note in his hand. Maybe it was a joke. Maybe it was real. Either way, it wasn't over. Not yet. Meanwhile, somewhere deep in the woods, a house appeared. It wasn't there a minute ago. Now it stood tall again, chimney smoking, windows glowing. Clara stood at the door. She wasn't angry. She wasn't sad. She was smiling. Such a rude guest, she said to herself. Didn't even finish his stew. She walked back inside, humming a soft tune. On the table sat 2 empty bowls, and one full one, still warm. She leaned over it, whispered something strange and ancient. The stew bubbled. A face appeared in the broth. Royce's face, still full of fight. Clara chuckled. I always enjoy the tricky ones, she said. They make the game more fun. She stirred the stew slowly. I'll see you soon, Mr. Tanner. Then she walked into the shadows and vanished. Back in Sparrow Bend, Royce stood outside the saloon. The stars were out. The moon was bright. The horse chewed quietly on some grass. He looked at the sky and took a deep breath. Next time, he said, I'm camping. He didn't know what would come next. Maybe peace. Maybe more trouble. But one thing was clear. If evil had a face, it wore a sweet smile, served hot stew, and offered a warm bed. And Royce Tanner? He wasn't falling for that again. Royce Tanner did not sleep much that night. He sat by the window, watching the street of Sparrow Bend. It was quiet, almost too quiet. The town seemed normal, but Royce had learned something important. Evil does not always show its face right away. The note still sat on the small table near the bed. She's not finished with you. The word stayed in his mind like a whisper he couldn't stop hearing. The next morning, June was feeling a little stronger. She sat up in bed and looked at Royce. Did you sleep? She asked. He shook his head. Didn't feel like dreaming about cages and stew. She gave a small smile, but her eyes were still tired. I think I remember something, she said softly. Before the house, before Clara. Royce leaned forward. What is it? A fire, she whispered. A big one and a scream, but I don't know if it was mine. Royce nodded slowly. He didn't push her. Some memories were better left alone. For now. Later that day, Royce went downstairs. He asked the bartender a question he'd been thinking about since last night. Anyone ever talk about a house in the woods? A strange woman? The bartender scratched his head. Can't say I have. But old Sam, the mailman, he tells stories. Says there are places in the forest that come and go. Ghost towns, haunted cabins. No crazy stuff. Royce didn't think it was crazy anymore. He thanked the man and went back upstairs. By evening, Royce and June were ready to move on. Royce had bought supplies, food, water, a map, and something he had never carried before, a Bible. Not because he was religious, but because he figured it couldn't hurt. They left Sparrow Bend quietly. No one stopped them. No one followed. The road ahead was long, but it felt safer than staying in one place. Where are we going now? June asked. Royce looked at the map. North. There's a bigger town called Birch Hollow. Might be a doctor there, or someone who can help. Days passed. The weather grew colder. The trees grew thicker, and Royce felt something, a shadow behind them. Not a real shadow, not something he could see, but something he could feel. One night, while camping by a river, June had another nightmare. She screamed in her sleep, and Royce woke her up gently. Was in my dream, June whispered. Clara. She said she's waiting. She said the stew is still warm. Royce stared into the fire. I think she's real, he said quietly. Not just some witch, something older, something darker. Like what? Royce thought about it. I don't know. But she doesn't live in just one place. She follows people. She hides behind kindness. A soft voice. A warm meal. He looked at June. She could be in any town, any house, any face. Finally, they reached Birch Hollow. It was bigger than Sparrow Bend, with tall buildings, paved roads, and even a small hospital. Royce got June checked by a doctor. The man said she was healthy, but her mind had seen too much. She needs time, the doctor said. And peace. Royce smiled. Don't we all? They found a small cottage to stay in. It had white curtains, a clean kitchen, and 2 soft beds. It felt safe. For a while. One morning, June was cooking eggs. She called out, Royce, come eat before it gets cold. Royce walked into the kitchen and froze. The smell. It wasn't eggs. It was stew. Thick, hot, spicy. He looked at the pot on the stove. It was full, bubbling slowly. June, he said. What are you cooking? She turned slowly. Her eyes looked different. Just stew, she said sweetly. He stepped back. Where did you get the meat? She didn't answer. He grabbed her wrist. It was cold, too cold. Then she blinked. Her eyes returned to normal. What's wrong? She asked. Why are you scared? Royce looked back at the pot. Empty. No stew. Nothing. He let go of her wrist. Just a bad memory, he said. June nodded. Me too. That night, Royce sat outside, staring at the stars again. It was quiet, peaceful, too peaceful. He took out the old note from his pocket. She's not finished with you. He burned it in the fire. Then he whispered to himself, she's never finished. Royce thought he had escaped, thought he was safe. But evil doesn't need a house or a forest. It just needs a moment of weakness.